Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, hanging in, man. To virtually meet you.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for talking to me today.
No, I appreciate you setting up. Cosmo and I are really good friends. We've been tight for about 12 years and 13 years, and yeah, he's one of the first guys I ever met in the industry, actually.
Really,
Yeah,
I started working with him about 15 years ago when he was at Briggs and doing some New York programs, and he's always been a good contact. He's a good guy.
yeah, he's a good guy. Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for talking to me. I just wanted to talk to some, industry insiders and some different positions to kind of see what they're seeing and what they're anticipating and what they're hearing from their suppliers and their contacts about kind of what's coming up next.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
So, can you tell me about AIC Hotels? It sounds like you handle sales and marketing for a group of hotels. Is that right?
Yeah, so we're the sales and marketing arm for. I work directly with our ownership group. It's a family. We're family owned and operated.
Okay.
We just happen AIC is the let's say the U.S. headquarters for our hotels that are throughout Mexico and the Caribbean. So
Okay.
we have locations in through like the Cancun Riviera Maya area with some of our Hard Rock hotels that are all inclusive, and then we have a high end all inclusive Unico. And then we move into Vallarta with a Hard Rock, and then we just opened up two hotels in Los Cabos, which happens to be Nobu Los Cabos, and then Hard Rock Los Cabos as well. And
Awesome.
then a couple entities in the U.S. In Miami, we have the Nobu Hotel in Miami Beach and the Eden Rock, which is a historic property.
Okay.
And we're opening up Chicago here in a couple months of a Nobu Hotel as well. So yeah, we're strictly the sales and marketing arm for the ownership group. And yeah, when you're speaking to us, you're speaking to the hotels. So it's great.
Got it. Okay. So, is there also a sales team at the hotel that you work with, or you are the sales team?
So we're
Or,
the external sales team, really.
okay.
Yeah. So there are sales managers, our partners on property.
Got it.
A little bit different. We're not a rep firm. We are the hotel. So we actually do have a couple. Some of our hotels are leading hotels. Some of them are also Alhigh properties as well. But yeah, we're the external sales team for our properties. And yeah, I've been with this ownership group for gosh, since 2007. I was an outside contractor repping the West Coast for a long time, and then I took over my position in 2012. I took this responsibility as running the North American team, being throughout U.S. and Canada. But yeah.
Got it. So, is it kind of like working with a national sales rep from a hotel chain? Like you may be the kind of the account manager, but then the actual contracting is done with the local person. Is that right?
Exactly. You
Okay.
nailed it right on the head. Is we have the team that I work with. We have we're not by verticals. We're by geographical territories. So we have a Midwest person, a West Coast, a Northeast, and they really call on that geographical area. So I work with that team to just put aside with meetings, incentives, groups, anything outside of really the wedding market or FIT market. We deal with corporations, B2B stuff,
Okay.
like you do.
So, are all of your properties closed now?
Yes, they are all closed at this point. I had to think about that for a second. Yeah, all of them are closed at this point. Some of them vary when they're opening again.
Okay.
A lot has to do with the travel restrictions. Obviously, that's our main point. Our Miami property probably would be something that might open depending on how the U.S. travel market works coming the next few weeks. But people, what's something people don't remember is the land border has been closed to people crossing the border, but air is not. So you can actually fly to Mexico at this point with groups, and as crazy as that sounds, it is happening. And not our hotels, and not a lot of the hotels, but there are hotels that are open technically
Wow.
in the areas.
But have you heard of? There aren't still groups still traveling right now, are there?
Not as far as like incentive groups or anything like that. No, I can't, I mean, I couldn't say no for 100% certain, but I'm going to imagine
Right.
that during the last 2 weeks at least, and then the
Yeah.
next 2 weeks, we had some that operated not, when things started to get a little heavier here in the U.S.
Yeah.
We had some groups that were much larger that they left it open to their people to decide if they wanted to travel or not. And
Okay.
we had some where we had 20, 30, 40% actually travel. So that was kind of intriguing that they traveled, but
Right.
you know, the hysteria of things and the seriousness of things didn't really come full circle probably until, you know, later in March,
Okay.
really to that
Yeah,
extent.
that's about. I had a group scheduled for Cabo for first week of May, and the end of March is
Yeah.
about when they finally made the decision to that we're just done. You know.
Yes, I mean some of these, it was interesting when no date was really put in place of when these borders and when this like the level 4 advisory. There's no date on that, so in legal terms, it becomes very tough when you have businesses that puts bans on travel, but then hotels or airlines or DMCs that are, businesses that need to go by legal terms, and that always plays a role. So it's been interesting, and I've learned a lot on the legal side of things.
Yeah. So
But it's been,
did that level for guideline from the State Department, I think it was, that suggested recommended no non-essential travel. Was that a key factor in with force majeure clauses in cancellations?
yeah, I mean, so the State Department usually, like, at least, I can't speak to everybody's force majeures. Some have ones where the actual hotel is located. So if the CDC or the State Department were to warn against, like, let's say, traveling to the state of Florida,
Yeah.
then that would fall into within our force majeure. That would definitely fall into place. It really, nowadays is like the WHO, the CDC, the State Department. So we kind of need to watch all of them and see what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I know some, we're getting stricter clauses now for groups that want to travel into the future.
Yeah.
And some corporations have said, I want it to be the CDC, I want it to be the WHO, I want it to be the State Department. We really urge on something that is, even though 75-80% of our business comes from the US or North America, I should say, we really want to decide on the CDC or the State Department coming into these areas, something that really affects where our business is coming from and where the corporations reside too. So that makes a big deal.
Yeah, I imagine everybody is coming in with lengthy force majeure clause requests now, right?
Oh yeah, and it's one of those things. I feel like the lawyers are winning in a lot of ways during
Right.
times like this because it's a really a debate and a fight back and forth on words, and whether you think yours says the same thing as Group X,
Right.
a lawyer can tear that up to be something that is totally different. So
Yeah.
yeah, we're seeing a lot stricter clauses, and even ones that are referencing just COVID, which is, which won't be around, as far as the extremities of things, for hopefully too much longer. But groups are. It's happening now. It's today. It's relevant. So groups
Right.
are wanting to put those in the clauses.
Yeah. So the groups that canceled over the last couple months, can you give me a sense of what percentage of those rescheduled versus just plain canceling?
Um, it's a running target. I would say that ones that actually postponed, or let's say ones that were already contracted. So for ones that are already contracted, I would put it in in the 90% to 95% that actually moved.
Okay.
The only difference was when this was very early on and we didn't know where this was going, groups were willing to move into later in the year. And then now we're seeing, now that this is progressing a little bit, depending on where, especially where these groups are coming from,
Yeah.
that now it's moving into 21, meaning they were moving towards the end of the year because maybe, hey, this might last a month, might last 2 months, and then it'd be done.
Got it.
Now, this being a little more extreme in other parts of the US, I live in California. The state of California has done a great job in containing it to an extent, knock on wood. Other parts of the country is still hitting peaks as it is right now. So they're moving their ban of travel now through 20 and starting to look at 21. But that plays a role with incentive trips too. So when you're supposed to be selling and qualifying, that plays a different role as well. So yeah, 90-95% have really moved their programs.
That's great. That's wonderful.
Yep.
So how far out are you seeing cancellations for it? I assume a lot of your events for the summer have probably canceled, right? Do you have events canceled into the fall as well?
Yeah, we don't have at least where our locations are, we don't have a ton of like incentive business for the summer. Incentives are tough in the summer to
Right.
travel because no one's traveling with kids or without kids, I should say. In the fall, we're starting to see some.
Yeah,
It depends. We won't cross the bridge of force majeure by any means at this point,
right.
because the fact is we're not there yet. We don't know what the extent's going to be. Some might be the association side of things where you're having to book out 4 or 5 months in advance on registrations. So we're seeing some of those move. But a lot are holding strong. I actually give a credit to a lot of our third parties and site selection companies that have done a great job in educating their clients on, okay, we can't go there yet. I know you want to, but we're
Right.
not, like, force majeure wise, we're not there yet.
Right.
But hey, if we're there, it's everybody's in their rights to their money and to movement and stuff. We just want, us as a company, we don't look at it being transactional. We don't want to look at year one. We're trying to look at year 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Sure.
And I really harp on that with my teams. Like, let's do best by our clients, and hopefully we see that return as well from them.
Right. To build a relationship so they come back to you for their next trip in another destination.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
our retention rate is high. We're in the 75 percentile that, year, maybe not year over year,
Yeah.
but depending on our product, that they're visiting, because we have 4 different brands, is that especially the big groups. We have some groups that can't go anywhere else. So just because of space wise, we have some properties that are 1,800 rooms, 85,000 square feet of meeting space, and they always go offshore. Well, guess what? Outside the United States, there's not many places you can go that actually serves that clientele. So which is good for us.
Got it. So are you seeing, I assume you're seeing a downturn in bookings for this year. Are you seeing a normal level of interest and bookings for 2021 and 2022, or has that kind of fallen off and as businesses are waiting it out to see what happens?
I would say the lead volume, I think, is definitely decreased in the last week or two.
Okay.
That's going to be real terms. I think 21 it'll be a down. I don't think it'll be a down year necessarily as far as room nights. I think the competitive set now, we're going to see a decrease in rates. We're going to see a decrease, like an additive value, a lot of things where I think the competition is going to be a lot stronger moving forward. I think in cities where we're not, I look at like Las Vegas or New York or Chicago. Chicago will be open, I guess, in a couple months. I'm eager to see what the luxury does, and then what I won't say bottom level, but like the next level up, how close they get with their rates and their concessions.
So are you saying because you think demand will be down, there'll be some groups that will not travel, so hotels need to be more competitive to get the business that's still there?
I think companies and hotels and vendors are going to make a couple knee-jerk reactions and wanting to lower rates and concessions.
Okay.
I think that'll bring everybody to almost an even level playing field, where I don't necessarily think there'll be less groups traveling. I think there'll be some, no question, because there'll be the fear factor of it all.
Sure.
But we're seeing now our lead time is being we're seeing 22 for sure. If not 23, we're seeing some of our bigger groups looking at 23 because they're wanting to, hey, we know everybody's struggling. Let's try to get in now. And some of them are getting great deals at this time too. That's the other thing. I mean, they're getting good deals.
Yeah, so my impression is that my impression was that hotels are hungry for the business now because nobody's traveling, the number of bookings are down. And so my impression was that this is a great time for groups to book because hotels want the bookings. But then I talked to a national sales manager from Fiesta Americana Hotels, who told me that all of the groups from this year that have canceled have rebooked for next year, and next year is very full, and they don't anticipate rates going down very much at all. Are you seeing some of that also?
So it depends. Like we were good about moving a lot of our groups into the end of this year, and not until like the latter half of this pandemic, really in the last like week or two, have we seen moving into 21. So yes, it's some of our smaller properties. Like we have one property that's 450 rooms. A lot of the higher end, that's a higher end property, they moved to 21. So for a bigger group, let's say 300 rooms out of the 450, it was actually very tough to find space moving into 21. So that is 100% correct. What I'm eager to see is some of these city hotels and some of these other hotels that maybe the booking window is 6 months or 90 days for the FIT market. that will drop. I think that will come down. I just think the ADR will be a little bit lower in 2021, but then pop back up. I think really companies are going to try to get deposits. They want to get those signed groups now and give concessions for that rather than raise the rate up and try to get that group. I think they're going to lower the group, try to get them in, and bring a higher deposit. Personally,
okay, that makes sense. So my last question is: have your hotels started to talk about or share with you any changes or safety measures that they're putting in place for operations once the hotels reopen, as far as social distancing or different kinds of cleaning? Or
yeah, we talked about it. Yeah, we're starting to see now articles come out and like a lot of press coverage on the fact of just that. Like, hey, groups are going to want to be 6 feet apart when they're sitting down for, like, let's say a general session. And it, like the EP properties, like, your standardized property here in the US, well, I guess you could say, well, I guess if they pay for it, it's like one of those things because space is a dollar figure,
right? Which
is interesting. Whereas in the all-inclusive market, at least for us in our hotels, we don't charge for our space. So groups, when we're all inclusive, we're all inclusive. Like you could have, welcome reception that's 6 hours or 2 hours. It's the same room rate. Doesn't matter.
Right.
So we're going to see things like that. I think that will play a role. Or I think we're going to have more true incentives, meaning you're not going to have as many group activities. So you might go during one week set, but you might do a welcome reception, you might do a farewell, but you're not going to have all the in-between stuff. I see more of that happening. The one thing with the cleaning protocols and stuff, companies are starting to put that out. I think the Purell stands or the sanitizing stands, you're going to see that, I think, across the board, airports, hotels, out in public, you're going to see that more than ever. I think the cleanliness of bathrooms across the board, airports, everything is going to be, I think, the cleanest thing you'll ever see in your life.
Yeah.
We are looking at things of how we can let the client press book. And by what I mean by that is, like the airlines did, some of them faster than others, they did their fees waived for a reason. They didn't want to take the fear of you pressing confirm booking. They wanted you to press it and then later make the decision. Same thing with us is we're looking at ways that will ease the client's fears on the cleanliness and what they look for. For instance, like UV rays filters, water filters in the lobbies, like all that kind of stuff that kill, whether it's proven, like we're searching for that stuff and we're looking for that, but whether it's proven or not at this point, we're just looking into that and see what works and what doesn't, what's real and what's not,
right,
to let clients feel that they are walking into a room, that they know that that's to the full extent as clean as possible. We do have a room category on most of our properties. It's called a pure room, and it's with a company that we have contracted that it affects the filtered in the sinks, in the water, in the cleanliness of the sheets, the air filter in the room, everything, so that when people have severe or high risk allergies, that room is suited for them. I really started with city hotels like in Mexico City and other areas where pollution is so high that plays a role. So we're looking into that on a more mass scale in our function space, in our rooms and everything.
Well, that makes me think of two things. One is that I hear about people talking about across society, what kinds of changes will be in place as things start to reopen. I heard a podcast in the New York Times talking that this could go on for a year or two, where there's social distancing. And I don't know how you do a corporate event and have a dinner party, at a round of 10, if you're going to social distance. I don't know how that works. So that would be really interesting to see how that even happens. Interactions with a front desk person, and a cocktail reception is tricky if you really want to social distance. The other thing it makes me think of is that, it might be smart for some, not good for the hotels, but it might be smart for a meeting planner to say, I'm willing to book for January, but I want the option to cancel without penalty until 60 days out, because this virus could keep going. Things could still be shut down in January. Have you had requests like that?
We haven't had too much with that yet. I feel like we're going to, once I call it maybe like June 1st. Like once we get out of that, our people are maybe leaving their house for the first time and they're going to feel more comfortable going to a restaurant and they're going to see how that goes. I picture it with a restaurant already. Like I can already see when we go out, you might have a table, then an empty table, then a table,
Right.
or it's just like you and your partner, your spouse, whatever, maybe or a friend, whatever. But I think that we have looked into, I mean, shoot, back in 09, 2010, when we had that crisis as far as the economy goes, we really looked at like no attrition. And we had that was a huge stepping stone for us, and we did it. But our booking window internationally for where we're located is about 90 days. Might be a little bit more. That's our hot button, our hot spot. So for us, we have to be able to have time to resell that room. If we were in New York City, okay, or if we were in Las Vegas or something like that, that could change overnight, you know. So it's a little bit different. So we're looking at that. I think it's something that you know, there's nothing like face-to-face meetings, and I'm not saying that I'm not being biased because we're in the industry, but this is good for now. Like the virtual is good for now because we have to. But there's nothing like emotions and connecting. And my wife, she's a psychologist, and the same thing. It's like they're doing telehealth at this point, but there's nothing like seeing a patient, talking with them, and same thing in our industry is the same concept. So yeah, I mean, we're also getting into the individualized incentive programs as well. So we were in that back a long time ago, and we're starting to bring that back just in case clients, again, we want like you, for instance, to be able to reward your clients and be able to earn that. But there's nothing like a group. There's nothing like that team building. There's nothing like that cocktail reception. So hopefully we will get back to that. It just might be a modified version of it, at least for the time being.
Well, it's going to be fascinating to see what happens over the next 6 to 12 months, because it really is unprecedented. And that New York Times podcast I just listened to said this could be 4 years before things get back to normal. But
yeah,
cities are ready to reopen in a month or two. So, it's hard to say.
And that's what's going to be interesting. We'll see how some of these cities, how they open, and it's going to be a big deal.
Right. Well, listen, thank you so much for your time today. It's really interesting to hear it from your perspective, what you're seeing, what you're hearing from groups, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate you having me, and we'll be back before you know it, and doing business and traveling all over the world like all of us do.
Sure.
And it's an exciting time, and this time is good to be with our families and connect on a different level. So I appreciate you taking the time and thinking about us as well.
Absolutely. Likewise. Have a good day. Thank you so much, and hopefully we can do some business together at some point.
Definitely. Talk to you soon, Kevin. Thank you.
Take care. Bye.